For as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to be in front of a camera. What's up everyone on the internet? Thank you for making this video party. I'm so excited to upload this one for you guys because we're finally in the month of March, and I figured, you know what? Let's take a break from some of the anime and look at some movies. And I figured since we're in March, let's take a look at some Martin Scorsese films. Martin Scorsese! Anyway, for this video, we'll be taking a look at one of his most famous films and one of my most personal favorite movies, which I didn't know was actually based on a true story, and that would be Goodfellas. This movie came out back in 1990 and stars Ray Liotta as Henry Hill, Robert De Niro as Jimmy Conway, and Joe Pesci as Tommy DeVito. Holy crap, when you look at the cast for this film, it's pretty crazy to see how Martin Scorsese was able to assemble this trio of incredible actors for this gangster movie. Anyway, the movie is pretty much a biopic slash crime drama that retells the life of Henry Hill and his rise and fall from the mob. And right from the get-go, I really love how the story immediately pulls you in as you hear Harry directly address the audience through narration as if he's telling you his story personally. And one of the other things that I also love about the narration is how it pretty much sets the tone for the overall story. And this is something that works in Scorsese's favor, as we've seen this before in one of his films, Casino, where we have both Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci both narrate certain parts of the story so that they can address the audience about their current thought process. Which is funny given how both Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci are pretty much side characters in this movie, while Ray Liotta takes the front stage alongside with Lorraine Bracco, who plays his wife in the movie. It's also interesting how the movie allows her character, Karen, to narrate her parts of the story, which is something that we rarely see in these mob films. Because how often do we see these gangster movies where we get to see things from the wife's perspective? Yes, we have movies like The Godfather, but most of the movie revolves around Michael Corleone, and for the good majority of the story, his wife isn't really unaware of how truly evil he really is. Here you get to see how a relationship is put to the ultimate test when the wife starts to become entangled with some of her husband's business with the mob. So it's very interesting when you see Karen try to play the victim in the story, where in reality, her hands are dirty too. But anyway, going back to Henry, like I said, the movie pretty much follows most of his life within the mob, which started at an early age, and you could see how an environment can have an effect on a kid's mind. What was that thing that Liam Neeson said in Batman Begins? Create enough hunger and everyone becomes a criminal? Yeah, that's definitely an understatement for this film, as we see how easily Henry is influenced at a young age by the mob, because there's a 5-letter word that'll get anyone to do anything: money. And as we progress through the film, we begin to see how Henry's starting to become a trusted member within the mob. Now, even though he is very deep within this crime syndicate, he can never be a boss, given how he's half Irish. And the same goes for Robert De Niro's character, who is kind of like a father figure to Henry throughout most of the film, but can never be a boss as well. So the only person who actually qualifies for the position is Joe Pesci's character, Tommy, who is the definition of a wild card. Honestly, Joe Pesci steals a good portion of this movie, given how he plays this role with such intensity and such randomness, where you're pretty much walking around eggshells if you come across this guy. Perfect example is a scene where Henry is trying to be funny with Tommy, where you don't know if he's gonna pull a gun on you either if you tell a bad joke or if you're trying to be on his good side. You just can't tell. It's also very scary how Henry's able to pick up certain phrases that definitely tell him that someone is gonna get whacked. Because with the FBI having an overall presence in this film, any little mistake made by anyone within this organization can lead them to certain death. That's really all it takes. One step out of line and you're done. While you have guys getting whacked over very important things like leaving evidence behind, you also have guys getting whacked because they're either too flashy with their money or because they just talk too much. Which leads me to the focal point of Henry's story, the Lufthansa Heist. Now, even though you don't see the actual heist, Scorsese shows you the minds behind the mice and the thought process of how they're going to pull off this heist, and also the aftermath, which pretty much leads to Henry's downfall. Because while the heist is successful, Henry's greed is never satisfied as he begins to work outside the mob, which ultimately leads to his pride before the fall moment. Now, even though this movie relies heavily on the mentality of the mob, there are some slightly humorous moments to provide some breathing room and some time for the audience to relax from all the intensity. And now that I think about it, because Henry was in the mob for a good majority of his life, the way he interacts with some of these members, you could say that they're pretty much family to him. You have father figure characters within this story to help guide him on his journey, while at the same time you also have the crazy cousin characters that like to shake things up. Overall, I really enjoy this movie as it pretty much takes you on a wild ride as you watch Henry's crazy mob story play out in front of you. There are moments where you get caught up within the excitement. There are moments where you get a little scared and a little intimidated by certain characters. And then there are moments where you realize, oh crap, I'm rooting for the bad guy. But unlike other mob movies like The Godfather, this movie is pretty much upbeat in terms of tone and pace. To put in perspective, while The Godfather is something you watch with your dad, Goodfellas is something where you watch with your best friends. So if you're thinking about watching a movie this week, you should definitely check out this film. Well, that's going to do it for this video, guys. That was my overall review on Goodfellas. If you like what you saw, click the subscribe button so you can always updates from this channel. I'll see you next time with a brand new video. Bye-bye.